I'm so big.
It is my privilege to introduce Shane Lyon. Shane Lyon, he's been in the market for a while in the staffing industry. He created Compass Career Fairs. It's a huge event. Um, and I'm not going to give some big long thing. I'll let Shane introduce himself, tell you about himself. But Shane, thank you for coming today and giving insight to people who are in that transition, the people that you are hoping that comes to the career fair and maybe connects with one of your employers.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Steve and I have been friends for a very, very long time, and he's right. I have been in the staffing world, in the employment world for over 17 years, almost 18 years. Something I just kind of fell into, and then ended up falling in love with, which is interesting, right? Being in the employment world, and about 11 years ago, a little over 11 years ago, being in the staffing world, I went to a lot of job fairs. I went to a lot of career fairs, and I went as an employer. And I would go to those events, and they were okay, but nothing really stood out. And then there was one day I was sitting at an event, and I won't name the institution it was at. It sucked, and it sucked as an employer. It sucked as a job seeker. And I sat there and I thought, God, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to treat employers. There's got to be a better way to connect with job seekers. There's got to be a better way to get these individuals and these organizations to network together. And then, furthermore, what really frustrated me is there wasn't a lot of career fairs and networking events like that were open to the general public. Most of these organizations that are putting them on are tech colleges or universities or colleges themselves. And if you're not an alumni or a current student, you're not going. And I saw that was a big problem, that we needed something for our general population and the general public to go to these events, to go and network with companies. So a little over 11 years ago, we started our first job fair, and now we're 11 years later, and I've put on almost 30 of them across Utah. And we have another one scheduled for tomorrow here in Ogden at the Monarch. So job fairs have been interesting because, again, we are a very good indicator of the market and where the market's going. Last year was a tough year. It was definitely a tough year for employment. It was definitely a tough year for job seekers. It was a tough year for hiring. And when I say hiring, is over the last few years, we've seen a lot of jobs. For a long time, there was more jobs than people. And I saw that in my staffing world as well. 2024 hit, and all of a sudden, there's more people than jobs. Companies kind of started to hold back, and companies said, "Oh, I'm not too sure if we're going to make a hire right now." Or they weren't hiring as frequently as they were back in 2022, 2023. And I saw that in my job fair world because we saw a big flip from employers to job seekers. Most of my events usually bring anywhere from 70 to 100 employers, and I average around 4 to 500 job seekers. All of last year, it completely flipped, and I didn't get over 35 employers, and I'd have 1,000 plus job seekers come in a 3 hour period. This year is going to change. And I can guarantee you that there are going to be more jobs created. There's a lot more excitement in the air. There's a lot more going on. Unfortunately, it's not going to flip a switch and all of a sudden tomorrow there's going to be all these positions. But as we move into the second quarter, as we move into a little bit later, you're going to start to see more and more people hiring and more companies coming around. And I know that because right now this has been kind of a slow event. I'm not going to lie. I wish I had more. I've worked harder this event than I have any other event to try and get employers in. And I have these big employers who have come back to me and said, "Hey, Shane, we want to be there. We just don't have a need right now. We're not sure what we're going to do. So we're just going to hold strong." So right now I have 29 employers that have signed up for my event. And I wish I had a lot more, but I just unfortunately do not. And we have a variety of employers. Over this last year, we get a lot of government, we get a lot of education, and we get a lot of healthcare. Those are the three industries that have really, really been thriving right now. So for this upcoming event, I'll name off just a few of the big companies that are going to be there. So we have obviously the Air Force Recruiting Office, we have America First Credit Union, we have some construction companies that are coming, a company called EduStaff, organization called Feller and Went, which is a law office. We have a lot of school districts. And what's really interesting to me about school districts is when you hear school district, like Ogden School District or Granite School District, Weaver School District, what do you think of? Teachers, right? That's not it. I actually sat down with one of these school districts last event, and I asked her, I was like, "Boy, you guys are really hiring teachers." She's like, "Yeah, but this isn't really for teachers. We hire a lot of IT. We hire a lot of maintenance. We hire a lot of things that are on the background that people never see in these school districts, but they hire for these organizations." So as I hear a lot of the people on this call saying, "Oh, I've been in IT, I've been in marketing, I've been in these different industries," school districts might be an opportunity for you to look into, because these are things that you wouldn't think that they'd be hiring for, but you've got to have those different industries and those different skills on the back end to help the students and the teachers and everything on the front end. Of course, we get the Army, we get some local banks. So we have Zions Bank Corp. I already mentioned America First Credit Union. We Our events bring in a wide variety of different types of industries. We don't specialize in one industry. We don't specialize in engineering. We don't specialize in IT. We don't specialize in manufacturing. And one of the reasons why we don't limit it to one industry is because it's an all-encompassing job fair that attracts, excuse me, just about any and every employer that you can imagine. Like I said before, we've had upwards of 100 plus employers at our events before. But we always see a really wide variety, which is why it's so important to be able to just come and network with people, come and talk to companies, just get a feel for what companies are hiring, what's going on. But again, most importantly, just to network with people and just see what they're hiring for and see what the future holds for them. And with that, that's kind of a quick breakdown. I'll answer questions and any questions that you guys have.
All right, let me put it back to the gallery, and I'll throw Jared Dance in first. Jared?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I've always enjoyed these opportunities to kind of, come and network as a crew here, and because I love your energy and stance on these job fairs, and I think each of us are thinking with our own hats. How might we position ourselves? Because some of us may have tried the virtual one, some of us have tried, but when we have, some of us are seasoned and we go in with 10, 15, 20 years, some of these job fairs are hard to chew on because how can we find the most success? So I guess thinking of my hat, I come with 15, 20 years experience in financial services, banking, and insurance sectors from the marketing and sales ops and project management perspective. And how might I position myself if I'm looking to attend? Because I would love to attend, just kind of analyzing. I have two conversations tomorrow that might prohibit me going. They're good calls. So I'm trying to sell myself in those type of settings, interview two type of thing or phone screening. But if I'm looking to attend, how might someone like myself coming in with those skill sets come in? Because I'd be willing to look in those sectors. It's just hard in the job market to apply where you're not looking like 100% like a good fit, right? Because you're not equivalently someone over there. So what are your advice for someone like myself coming in, looking at those sectors and like, is this a good fit for me from a cost benefit analysis? But what are
Yeah,
your
good
thoughts?
question. Yeah, really good question. Don't sell yourself short if you have the experience, or if you're not if you think in your head you're not the most qualified candidates. That's not always the case. Your skills have great value. Absolute. Every single person on this call, every person that attends my events have great value. Is doing a little bit of research ahead of time on those organizations.
Yeah.
I always have all my organizations listed that are coming on my website, and then actually today, for anyone that did pre-register, I'm going to send an email out to everyone to let you know who is coming and kind of what to expect. One of the key things that I see a lot of people come is they try and get as much time as they can in front of that recruiter. That recruiter is going to talk to probably 900 people in a 3 hour period. They have seconds, right? It's fast. It's really fast. And so the idea is to get there and obviously provide a resume, provide your information, learn about the position, but get their contact information, because what's going to be key is you following up with them. I would love to say that every single recruiter is going to follow up with every single candidate that they receive, but it's just not the case. They just don't have the time to do that. And so it's kind of practice your elevator speech, right? Get in there and just get a good understanding of what it is that they're looking for, what they need, get any information that you possibly can. And then again, ask what the easiest way and best way to follow up with them is. Because then from there, you take the lead and you're able to really, get in front of them. Another great thing is I am always willing and able to help make connections for you. So if anyone on this call has somebody you've been trying to reach out to for quite a while and they're in the Utah area, I probably know them. And so I've learned in this industry for a long time, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right?
Yep, and who can
It's
deliver it in the right time,
Yeah, yeah. Here's a story. I have a really good friend that applied for a local, I think it's called Sure Steel, and it was a sales position. He had applied and nothing, nothing, nothing. He reached out to me and said, Shane, do you happen to know anyone? I just happened to be connected to another sales guy there on LinkedIn. I sent him a message. He got an interview the next day. I'm not going to say that I did that. He did that. I just helped open the door for that. And so, uh, again, you just remember these job fairs, you have a very short time frame to be able to talk to these employers. Another thing to remember is a lot of people that are going to these job fairs, the recruiters that are there are that. They're just the recruiters. And I'm not downplaying recruiters at all, but they're probably not the end person that you're going to interview with. They're not probably not the end person that's going to make the hiring decision. It's just your foot in the door to gather information. And that's what these are, is networking and information gathering sessions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your perspective.
Yeah.
And thanks for connecting on LinkedIn and decided to correspond with you.
Yeah, connect with me. Because look, this is my passion. I want to help. Again, I already said it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's amazing that even a little message from either Steve or myself or any one of you for anyone else here can open doors.
Okay. Thanks, Jared. Next up is Dax. By the way, it's randomized today. You guys are not going to have a clue. So just like being at the career fair, I'm going to put you on the spot when you least expect it. And that's what we need to be good at, being put on the spot and responding as quick as possible.
Raise your hand if you play a game and try to guess if you're the person that Steve's going to call on next. I have about maybe a 50% success rate on guessing when you're going to call on me, Steve. Yeah, thanks, Shane.
It's like the weather. Just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Shane, for being here. I loved what you just said about it being like a networking and information gathering. That I think that's a really valuable way to look at these things. I think my question would be maybe especially for this group, and I hope this doesn't come across as cynical because I don't mean it that way, but I've never had much luck at job fairs, especially in the last this time around for sure, but even, like last time I was looking 10 or so years ago, because I feel like I'm in marketing and, my last three roles have been director level. And I feel like most of the time when I go to job fairs, they're looking for either they're not looking for like back office
Entry level.
leadership. They're often
Yeah.
looking for front level sales, maybe, but more often, a lot of that other stuff. So for those of us, and I think there are a lot of us here that are further along in our careers and also more, in office business type services, how can we make the most value out of going to a job fair and doing that networking and information gathering?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And you're absolutely right. The lion's share of positions really are usually entry level. We do see a lot of that. We usually see, living in Utah, right? We're very heavy in manufacturing. So we always see a lot of manufacturing companies that are hiring for those entry level roles. Right now, uh, we have a few manufacturing companies. We have a few of these companies hiring for entry level roles. But I want to say that the majority of these are going to be kind of mid level. And that's for this event. Now, I can never promise anything because I just don't know. I don't ask the companies what they're hiring for. I've gotten those responses before where people said, "Oh, I haven't had the greatest of luck. I haven't had the greatest of opportunity." You got to change your mindset around that. You got to go in with an open mind and say, okay, what opportunities can I uncover from this? Because again, you might find a manufacturing company. So there's an organization called Yaya Foods. And when you think of Yaya Foods, you're like, oh, well, it's a food manufacturing company. They're probably just frontline employees, frontline workers. They're hiring for some really high-end maintenance workers as well, too, making a really good salary. They're hiring for some internal office positions that they're looking for as well. So what I would suggest is just because you read a name, right, or you just see that they might only be hiring for these entry-level roles, you still want to connect with these companies and get a feel for what else they're hiring for. But I'll say it again, similar to the school districts. Like, who would have known that they would have needed all these additional roles when you think school districts, you only think teacher. So my suggestion is what does it hurt to go, right? What does it hurt to go to these events and go to as many as you can because you're going to network with companies. You're going to get to know them. You're going to get a feel for them. And then all of a sudden, you might get a light bulb that pops on your head like, holy crap, I didn't even think of these guys. I'm going to get on their website and I'm going to look and see what they're all about. I'm going to get on LinkedIn. I'm going to look at their job postings and see what they have. I'm going to send my resume to them anyway with a cover letter or just a really quick email to say, hey, I saw that you weren't looking for these roles, but I'm still interested. I really like your company. I really like your organization. Do you ever have these type of opportunities? Because again, you're getting those contacts. Get those contacts, and not. I wouldn't recommend getting a contact like a jobs at thiscompany.com. Get an individual contact so you can reach out to them to create relationships with them to see what opportunities they may have. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Next is Tony.
Hey, Shane.
Hey,
Thanks
Tony,
for
you look
joining
really
us.
familiar.
I probably, because I met you at the last job fair over there in
Okay.
Ogden. So, yeah, excited for this one, by the way. I'm hoping to show up. Um, I think if you look around the audience, this is kind of tagging off of a little bit of Dax's as well. And I am coming off of a cold. So if I do sound nasally, I'm pretty sure it's accurate. But a lot of us are tenured individuals, right? And I did speak to the school district and those kind of deals when I was at the last job fair, and it just seemed like the salary requirements um, that we've kind of gone through over the years don't match up with something that we could kind of go with. And with that still being said, there is some need to that, and I get that. But for some of us that are into, let's just say, 10 to 15 years of retirement, starting over something with the school district is not something that and it would excite me. Let's put it that way. So, what would you say to the old guys, us, because a lot of us here are, 10, 15 years to retirement. How can we leverage your job fairs with a lot of it being entry level and just trying to get us to the finish line?
Yeah. Well, first things first, age is just a number, right? And I wouldn't ever look at myself and say, oh, I'm 45, I'm 55, I'm 65. How am I going to get back into this job market? It's all a mentality. It's your excitement in front of these employers. It's your passion in front of these employers. And if you go in, and I'm not saying that you're doing this, right? But I'm just saying to anyone, and I see this a lot. If people go in with a blah Eeyore mentality, what are you projecting? And I'm sure Steve talks about how you project yourself, right? How you speak, your excitement levels. I'm a very excitable person. I'm a friendly person. I like to have a smile on my face because I know that the way that I react, I'm going to get a reaction from an individual that same way. So I always tell people that always worries, like, oh, well, I'm older, I can't do this. Don't sell yourself short. Go in there because again, look at the skills that you bring. Look at what you've learned over your career. That's got tremendous value, immense value Furthermore, sometimes we have to take a step backwards to take a giant leap forward. And so learning a new skill, learning a new industry is not always a bad thing. Something that you might not think that you're going to want to do, all of a sudden you might love it. You might all of a sudden be like, holy crap, I love this. We might be in an industry that's struggling right now. I look at the manufacturing industry, and let's be real. The manufacturing industry is looking for any and every way to automate and bring in robots to fix that, or to bring in less jobs, right, for people, and to do more products faster, more efficient. I look at these roles and not think, well, they're going to completely die, but we have to diversify and we have to look at other opportunities. For these kind of lower paying jobs, again, it's just getting a feel for what they have, because they might start out as a lower paying job and you're able to work your way up to a much better one. Because I've always told people that a low wage is better than no wage, right? Or a low salary is better than no salary. Now, I'm not saying go in and take that $15 an hour job and just put your head down and smile and do it. No, we have more skills than that. But it's just, again, it's the networking. It's getting an understand for the company, an understanding of where they're at, being patient with them, working with them. Maybe it's sometimes you do go and look at an opportunity and you look at a job and you're like, well, I guess I could do that while I look for another opportunity. But it's just kind of really getting back to just networking and gathering as much information as you can within the time frame for every employer that you can and you do want to talk to. What we will
So,
do is, after the event, we will reach out to the employers and ask them to share their jobs with us. I don't do that before the event. I do it after, because then I will share that out to everyone to say, here's the openings that they have. Here's what they still have available. Go and talk to them. Go and connect with them. Hopefully that answered your question.
yeah, and I think just to give you a little bit of boots on the ground kind of thing as well. Um, I've been out of work since March, technically, of last year, and I can tell you, last year, to confirm with what you said earlier, was brutal. Interviews were in the zero range for many, many, many months, and I can tell you now, the interviews that I'm getting are non-technical interviews, meaning I'm not, I'm an IT guy in the financial industry, and the jobs I'm interviewing for are not information technology, um, which is kind of an eye-opening for me. So your point of keeping your variety open is very valid. I'll say that for sure. And so I do back that 100%. And for anybody that's just joined the call or joined the unemployment rank, know that now is a lot better than it was 6 months ago for looking for jobs. The interviews are coming more frequently for me, especially, even with that being said. But I would keep your net very open and not be tunneled into saying, I'm only going to do this. Because my second interview was with Rocky Mountain Power. I know nothing about a gigawatt, kilowatt, anything like that, but it's a promising interview and it looks like it could be going somewhere. And I'm hoping they're checking references actually as we speak. And so that is something that completely was not even in my arena. Information technology is my background. So I would keep that in there. So Shane, your information and what you're providing is very valid. And if nothing else, that if I could just reinforce is that Shane knows what he's talking about. And I'm going to be there tomorrow as well, Shane. So I appreciate your time.
I love that, Tony. That's so freaking exciting. That's so cool to be able to do that. And you did. You opened up. You're like, why not? What does it hurt?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what's the worst going to happen? You could say no.
Right.
I'm not interested. It's just not for me. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to tag on Tony here just for a quick sec. Tony, there's two employers that he mentioned today that it's like Fort Knox. Now we all have those Fort Knox. I'm pretty sure Shane has hit the brick wall when he was out making sales calls, trying to connect with employers, and they just wouldn't give him the time of day. And yep. I'm going to mention those two companies because I have a pretty good memory. And one of them would be called America First. He mentioned that. So maybe your connections at America First aren't as good as Shane's. I'm not sure, and the other one would be Zions Bank. You had mentioned Zions Bank in the past. And so again, I'll go back to Jared at the very beginning. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's the right connection. And it's maybe the right connection that says, oh, Shane, if you're suggesting him, yeah, let me have a conversation with him. Some of the biggest challenges we're having, people aren't having those conversations. It's frustrating, even when we're doing the networking and we're still not going anyplace. So I'm just saying, if they're an employer of choice, or at least we want to have that discussion, that's something I'd really, entail. So,
And it's funny, Steve, you mentioned Zions. um,
well, I
I
wasn't
have
going to say what you're going to say, but that's
no, I
okay.
have, what's crazy is I have an interview with Zions on Thursday, and it is not information technology based again. Like it is just mind-boggling that when you go into these things, you can't go in and say I'm only going to get an information technology job. In fact, the recruiter is like, this isn't a technical job, right? And I'm like, doesn't matter. I want to talk to him, you know. And so it's kind of funny you say that, but I'm preaching to the choir. I think a lot of these people, to the people here as well, but don't be afraid to take those other risks, because half the time I can't get into America First. I can't get into Mountain America. I can't get into these guys. I've got like 9, 12, 15 applications into these guys, and I can't get an interview. And so, it's frustrating from that standpoint as well. But I promise you, I'm going to be talking to America First tomorrow at your job fair. I guarantee you.
Okay, there we go. There's a switch right
So,
there. I'm gonna
yeah,
get an interview. I'm gonna get
yeah,
there. So we get this attitude, and I'm there. I've been there as a
yeah.
job seeker myself, where uh, it's like I don't think they're gonna hire me, many of you I've been on a tangent level lately. Don't be a self-fulfilling prophet. And if you don't know what
Yeah.
it means, we can talk about that in our one-on-ones. But I'm gonna go back to our new kid on the block, Mike Anderson. What did Mike say? Mike said that part of the reason why he was downsized is his boss brought her entourage, and that happens. We want to be part of that entourage, and it's about all of you can say it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's also what you know. It's the skills and talent you bring to the table, but it's who you know that gets you that opportunity. So, Tony, thank you for being vulnerable and not being shy here. I appreciate that. And I'm going to go even step further here. When we're at this career fair, we need to find out if they have a department that has the role we want in there, and ask them, and maybe ask them who the head of that department is. And maybe we need to follow up. And yes, if we're at DAX and we're the director, maybe we should have a conversation director, see who else they know in the marketplace, because people like that, they talk to other people at their level, and they might know what something that's going on. Because if networking takes a place in the hidden job market, no offense to the career fair or to open positions, but we have to find out stuff that's already been happening and get our foot in the door after they're farther along in the process. And I know I'm preaching the choir, and you guys have heard me preaching this a lot, but and it's changing our attitude. You know what? This is going to be a great career fair. I'm going to meet some really cool people. They're really going to like me. I'm going to like them. I'm so glad Shane's doing this, and I'm glad Shane came and talked to us, because if you haven't been to this career fair, Shane is a servant leader. You will see him tomorrow pushing a cart with water bottles. No, serious. You saw it last time, Tony, and he offered you a water bottle. I mean, that's the guy. That's the founder and CEO of this group, and he's out there serving his people. That's why it's so successful. All right. Next up, let's go with randomizer. Who are we picking here? It looks like we're going to pick somebody new. Randy. This is the first time Randy's ever been to a job team virtually. I think if he came before, it was in person. So, Randy.
No, this is the first time. So yeah, thanks for having me. Um, gosh.
And if you don't have a question, you don't have to create one.
Okay.
There's guilt and shame in this group, okay? Unless you choose to be, unless you guys want that relationship, and Shane and I, we'll do it, man. We'll give you the guilt and shame. We'll make you want to come to a career fair or get out and do something if you need that. But that's not the relationship I want to have with people.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I guess if I had a question. So I'm a art director and graphic designer. Been doing that for about 30 years. And quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of doing it, and I'm interested in doing possibly something altogether new, but I have no idea what that is. And I guess my question would be, what is the best way to communicate to someone that I have the ability to do the job that they're looking for while having no proof of being able to do the job they're looking for?
That's a really interesting question, and it's a really interesting time for you to ask this. Um, I had mentioned earlier that I'm the chairman of the board for the Ogden Dinosaur Park, and we recently were looking for a park director. And being a park director, and I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. I'm not just throwing the dinosaur park out. It was really interesting because I had this job description that I put out that was all about managing a park, and you need to have this many years of experience running the park and all these different things, and you have to have nonprofit experience and all these things that the general board wanted me to put in this job description. Being in the employment industry, I'm looking at it, I'm like, guys, we're limiting ourselves. If you put that you have to have these things in a job description, you're going to have people, Randy, like yourself, that's not even going to apply. You're going to look at it and be like, what's the point? They're not going to talk to me anyway because I don't have 15 years experience running a dinosaur park. Who the hell has 15 years experience running a dinosaur park? Nobody does. So I had to put those things in there, but I looked at just about any and every resume that came in, and I got 700 resumes for this position. And one of the reasons was yes, there's a lot of people looking for work, but it's a cool role, right? It's a cool role when you think about this. That's why I got so many people that applied. Randy, the person I hired didn't have any experience running a park. They had worked for a nonprofit for a very short time frame. When I brought this person in, what I brought them in was the skills they had from their previous employers. She used to be a cheer coach. Well, I looked at that as an employer. Well, what a better way to help build a culture and to grow my existing team by somebody who was a cheer coach. That doesn't have anything to do with running a dinosaur park. That doesn't have anything to do with grants and funding and finance. And that's not the only reason I hired her. What I looked at, and she sold herself very well, right? If I would have just given this to the board and been like, hey, this is what it is, they would have probably voted to knock me off the board if I would have just brought somebody in that was a cheer coach, right? But it was her overall mentality. It was her excitement. It was her connections in the community. It was her ability to be able to do these jobs and to sell herself that she could do this. When she went through the job description, she said, we had an interview with her, the initial one that says, tell us about running a park. She said, I've never run a park, but this is what I have done. And I worked at a window company where I had a team of 45 people that reported directly to me. And this is what we accomplished. And this is how I can relate this to this role or to this bullet point, right, on your job description. She related her experience very, very well. And I saw it in the board, every single member of the board that was doing this group interview, I saw a light bulb kick on. Ding, ding, ding. Like they were so excited because she showed value in the experience that she brought. I suggest doing the exact same thing. I'm like you. So again, being in the staffing industry forever, I'm not going to lie. I am not a huge fan of the light industrial staffing world anymore. It's tough. It's hard. Companies are difficult to work with. So I'm doing the same thing, looking at different opportunities, looking at a different career change, looking at anything else. And I don't look at it as, well, I can't do that, or I don't really have experience. I'm looking at it like, oh man, whatever I put my mind to, I can do. I'm excited to go do this. I'm talking to a franchise consultant right now to potentially open a franchise of something that I have no idea about. But that doesn't scare me because I know that my past experience, I know my passion, I know my drive will get me to where I need to be. And to be honest with you, that's why a lot of these businesses and these individuals that get into these industries that they have no idea about succeed because they don't know what they're doing. And so they get in there and they do what they think they do best. There's a podcast I listen to called How I Built This. Have you guys ever listened to that? It is amazing. The guy's name is Guy Raz. Guy Raz. And it's a free podcast, How I Built This. And there's one in there that I really, really particularly like. There's hundreds of interviews. And what this guy does is he goes in there and he interviews these big name CEOs and founders. And it's not one of those, well, I did this, I did this, I did this. It's not a stereo instruction podcast. It's the stories about how these guys were feeling. It's the stories about what was going on with these guys' mind when they started something. And there was a really interesting one about Richard Branson that he interviewed Richard Branson, and he talked about, what did you know about the banking industry? Because he opened a bank. He said, I knew nothing. I didn't know anything about it. He opened, I don't know if you guys knew this, Richard Branson has 200 companies. And he opened a dress company. And then, what did you know about dresses? Nothing. And you know what? That's why it worked, because I didn't listen to the experts. I didn't listen to the people that said, you have to do it this way because this is how we've been taught in school forever. He did what he thought was right and the best way to take care of people. That's what I did with Compass Career Fairs. Was I didn't follow what everyone else says. What these universities are like, well, you have to run it this way, you have to do this, you have to do this. Why? Why do I have to do that? Let's make it just about as much about the employers and the job seekers and make it inclusive for everybody. So hopefully that helps. Sorry, kind of a long answer, but it's I don't limit myself. I don't think anyone else should. If you have the will and the passion to do it, oh my gosh, do it. Give it a shot. What's the worst could happen? Doesn't work? Pivot. Try something new.
Randy, I would also include AI in your job searches with your resumes. You can tweak your resume to make it sound like you do have experience, because a lot of times you're not going to, let's just put it this way. If you've been doing instructional design, there's no way you're going to jump right into managing a McDonald's or franchise, right? If that's what you wanted to do. But there are skills that you have. If you ask AI, it'll rewrite that to make it almost sound like you could run a freaking McDonald's franchise. That tool is so powerful, and you can use it to make yourself. It'll say stuff about you that you're just like, wow, I had no idea I could do that. In fact, one of the things after 6 months of no jobs, I actually asked AI, I said, using my LinkedIn profile, put it in there, what job should I be applying for? And the jobs that came out of it were like, I had no idea. I should be applying for those. And so that kind of mindset is good. And I'm just saying that because of my experience with these jobs that I have no clue what to be doing with Rocky Mountain Power. I'm in the third interview. Like, I don't know anything about it, but you know what? They're willing to train me. They're willing to fly me to Portland for a couple of weeks to get me trained up to speed and get up to speed to do that. So don't limit yourself, but use the tools that Steve has. These AI tools are freaking phenomenal, that we never had 20 years ago.
And to go with what Tony's saying, employers want, they have a need, but sometimes we forget that we have the experience. And so we need to tell them what we bring to the table that they need. And if we don't do that and use a generic resume, someone's going to read the subject line or whatever, and they'll say next, or, oh, I want to read on. But we're in a too sophisticated market that we need to take the skills we have that relate to what we're looking for. And, you and I should talk about how we do a different resume, because you are pivoting and you need to address that. So somebody doesn't look and go like, oh, well, he's not a fit. He's a graphic designer. How will he fit here? And, we can't change our experience, but we can change how we talk about what we bring to the table. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Next up is Kim Christensen.
Good morning. I am a supply chain executive. I've got extensive experience in healthcare and some in manufacturing. I've done everything that you can imagine in supply chain. My biggest concern is some of your employers that you've got listed, I've been applying with. However, some of them are government, and I'm getting notifications from them that they're on a hiring freeze or they've been told to close the position. So I guess my question to you is, what is the market saying about that, and how is that going to affect the overall job market and for us job seekers?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I actually had the IRS call me on Friday and tell me that they had to cancel the registration because they're not able to go. Um, it's short term. This is just it's just short term. If I try not to pay attention to the news because it's always bad news, uh, and it's just short term. These jobs have to be filled. The government will still have to hire. We're gonna see an increase in jobs. We're gonna see an increase in growth. We're gonna see people that or companies are starting to hire. Like I said to begin with, I wish I could say it's tomorrow. Trust me, in my staffing world, I wish I could say it's tomorrow. But it's going to take a little bit of time, but these jobs are going to come back. And so it's just being patient. It's just getting to continue to connect with people. You had mentioned that you've gone to these job fairs and interviewed, applied with a lot of these companies. Ask them about it. Say, hey, I did apply for this role. How do you suggest that I stand out? How do you suggest that I get in front of somebody? Is there somebody I should be reaching out to? Really, what should I do? Let them guide you. And they will. Most companies will. They want to see you succeed. They want to help you and they want to help you get where you need to be. But I really do think that this whole freeze on government hiring is going to be short term. It's not going to be a long-term solution. There's no way.
Well, that's good to hear because I think that affects the entire market. Obviously, the eliminating positions or available positions in the market hurts us all.
It's knee-jerk reactions. What happened in January of last year? All of a sudden, two big companies started doing layoffs. And so you had Amazon starting doing layoffs. You had these other big companies starting doing layoffs. And what did that do? It was a knee-jerk reaction for every other company like, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? I'm sorry, but these companies overhired during COVID. They overhired too many people, and so they were just trying to right size. But the second you get that, just like you said, Kim, with the government, it's this knee jerk reaction. Oh my gosh, they're not hiring. Maybe we shouldn't. Short term. It's going to be very, very short term. Just give it a little time. Don't read too much into it. Don't let it stress you out. Give it some time, and things will be back to normal and booming again.
Thank you. I appreciate the advice.
Next up is, where is he on my screen? Somewhere here. John, where are
Steve,
you?
I'm sorry, I've got
I'm right
about
here.
9 more minutes. So
Okay, we'll wrap it up here. All right, I'll open it up after John to everybody. Anybody has questions, we'll just do everybody. Thank you.
Hey, Shane, thanks for coming and talking to us. And I appreciate the work you do to create a larger, more inclusive job fair out there for folks. It is a little frustrating sometimes to see that, you have to be in a certain demographic to attend some of these. I'll just speak, I don't have a question for you actually, but like Dax and some of the others, Tony and those, my experience at the job fair has not actually been very good. You go in with 29 years experience, in manufacturing, and in engineering and that, and you hand them your resume and they look at it and you can almost just see them think, oh goodness, I don't have anything for this guy, right? And they just, if they had a wastebasket, they just put it in right now because they know that they're not looking for you at that job fair. And even going in and networking, right? I get a list of people to contact, just send them the resume after, and it's still crickets after. And maybe that's just a function of what the job market was like last year. But my best success has been finding someone I already know on the inside and just having them hand walk a resume into a manager or email it to them or whatever. So, and I don't know how you can make a connection between the job fair and something like that to make it more effective, double it up maybe, but I don't know if maybe that's the question, you have any advice on how we might do that?
it can be discouraging. I've seen it time and time and time again where people come in like, oh, I have too much experience. I always talk to people and tell them is how they approach a situation. What is their mentality? What's their excitement level when they walk into this, right? If you walk into a job fair thinking no one's going to hire me, I've got way too much experience. This just is not going to work. And this is with resumes. This is with interviews. This is with anything else. If you immediately bring yourself down to get going, I'm not saying you're doing this at all, but I'm just saying as general, I see this all the time where people come in with this negative mentality. It's like, oh, I'm just here because nobody's going to hire me anyway. It's going to project. It's going to project out of your voice. It's going to project out of your body language. People will see that. And yes, you are going to get discouraged. Sometimes you are going to have resumes and you're going to hand them out and they're going to be like, oh, this is great, but you really don't have the experience. Or let me just go ahead and let me file this in my file, right? And it goes on a stack with 37 other resumes. You're in competition for roles. You're in competitions for positions. And so it's just keeping a positive mentality. Again, just continuing to learn as much as you can. And even when it goes in that stack of there, if you know it's a role that you're looking for, and it's a role that you would be really good for, figure out a way to stand out. Ask them, hey, I saw that you just put that in your stack of resumes. How do I get to the top of that? How do I really stand out? Ask the questions, right? We're so afraid as humans to ask the hard questions. Being in the staffing sales world forever, I'd go in and try and get clients to use me for their staffing. And what would they say? Oh my gosh, you guys run in packs? Like, you are the ninth staffing company to come in today. So one day I looked at it and I started laughing. I said, well, actually, you had one of those take a number outside your door. And I took a number and my number came up and it was my chance to come in. And I got the person laughing. 2 months later, I had the contract. Why? I stood out. Mm-hmm. I was memorable. And so just be open, be friendly, be happy, be positive. I'm a big sayings person, and I like this saying is you have to make a choice to take a chance or nothing will ever change. And that's a kind of a saying that I absolutely love, and I live that, and I live it, and I live it. Another really cool thing that I learned the other day, or not the other day, that I suggest to people is during interviews, there's a really, really good interview question. I love this interview question. Right around the end of the interview, look at that employer and say, okay, because when they're going to say, do you have any other questions? Tony, this is Rocky Mountain Power. Do you have any other questions for me? Yep, I do. John, it's 6 months from now. What would I have had to done to exceed your expectations? And to watch employers look at you like, wow, this is what I would need. What a great question. One, you stood out in the interview. You showed initiative. You showed that you were interested, showing that you wanted to do better and really exceed their expectations. But for you, what did it do for you? It gave you a guideline for really what they're looking for, a guideline for really what it is that you need to accomplish to really wow that company. Oh, does that help?
Yes. And sure. To add to that, Shane, and I know I've been taking a little more time, if they do ask you that question and they say, do you have any questions for me? Don't do what Tony did and go to somebody that's not the hiring manager. Ask the hiring manager first the question, because the hiring manager on this one was nonchalant, but she made a point that being that these two have already answered that question, so make sure you address the hiring manager first. Oh man, what a faux pas.
Yeah. And that's true. Laugh at yourself too. It's okay to laugh. Be friendly. Go to these interviews and be yourself. Go and have fun. Get people smiling. Yeah. That's what's going to make the difference to stand out.
Yeah, I found that performance-based question is a good one, right? I've used that. I've also straight up asked them, where do I stack up against your other candidates? And that one made them very uncomfortable.
It does. Yes. Always does. Yeah. But it's okay because you asked.
Yeah. Do it. I asked this. I asked an individual. I interviewed with LabCorp last week, second interview, and she said, "Wow, you're asking me already." And I said, "Yeah, I would love anything that gives you pause or hesitation on my candidacy at this stage, and what are the next steps?" And she kind of danced around it, shared some thoughts, and said, "Well, I'm still interviewing other people, but didn't really talk about next steps." But I would say, might as well ask a couple questions, and then if they give you time, then throw that in there. So sorry, I interrupted someone. I apologize.
This is Roger. Is there anything at the job fairs that you can do to actually stand out to keep you and your name and resume in their mind?
It's hard to say, and that's really hard to do at the job fair because of the sheer number of people that are talking to these employers, right? Again, it's spending the time that you can with these companies and just again gathering data and gathering info and asking that question, how do I reach out to you? How do I take this further? What do you suggest that I do to get in front of the right people?
And I would
And just
say
ask the question.
I would say follow up with them like right afterwards, and then even hit them up on LinkedIn, because that, you know, and Shane, I don't know how you remember my ugly face, but that's part of it, right? I mean, Shane, this when was the last event you guys did? It was 3 months ago, right?
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it's just stuff like that, Roger. I mean, you got to be following up, and eventually you'll go, oh yeah, I remember you. I remember talking to you.
Mike has his hand up.
Yeah, something I learned in school many years ago. Um, Shane, your thoughts on this approach? I go up, I talk to somebody at a career fair, I give them my resume, and they look at it and they go, "Yeah, this is not what I'm looking for." Is there value in me asking them, "Look, I'm talking with a lot of people. Is there anything I can do for you while I'm networking? Is there anything you're looking for that I can send you?"
Yeah, absolutely. There's value in everything. It's value in creating that relationship, even the smallest relationship with them, getting to know, just ask the questions. Because again, I used to say, I would tell my salespeople all the time, they get so discouraged because no, no, no. Look, no is just short for not yet. That's all it is. No is just short for not yet. It's just not the right time. And we all know in the employment world or sales world or anything else, it's just timing. It's just timing. And so just be patient, continue to work with people. And Mike, I think that's a great option to go and ask them, okay, well, what is there? What other opportunities? Have you ever had these roles? How about if you ask them if they know anyone? You seen any companies looking for this? Are you okay if I connect with you on LinkedIn and just see, what we potentially can connect with in the future? Because you just never know where these people are going to go or who they know or what other doors they can open. And if you stand out, people inherently want to help. I think people are really good. That's one of the reasons why I do this is to help people. I I love what I do. I don't make any money off these job fairs. Most of the time, to be honest with you, they cost me money because they are very expensive to put on. But I do these to be able to help the community and to be able to connect people because I love doing it. I absolutely love doing it. And I think people want to do the same.
Thanks, Mike. You know, it's risky to ask a guy who's putting on a big event tomorrow to speak, and he's given us an hour of his time. I'll take one more quick question, and then probably I need to let Shane go. I mean, I didn't ask him how much time he had. I'd take 2 hours of his time if he'd give it to us. So, Shane or anybody, one more question. Don't be shy, you guys. I think
I'll ask one real quick. This is Brad. Um, they always say the best time to look for a job is when you have a job. Do you have some recommendations as to, is there still kind of a hangover from, hey, this guy's out of work, or is there a way to close that gap? I just would be curious as to what you hear from employers, especially in these more senior positions.
Well, you're right. They do say that. It's always the best time to look for a job when you have one. But why? It's because you can be a lot more picky and it's less stressful. But no, it's just work with people. If they ask the question, why haven't you found anything? Just say, I've had opportunities, but I've really been looking for this, right? Or it's been a slow market, just to be honest with people. But there's really, it's all in a mentality. It's really, I keep saying it, stay positive and just continue to stay as positive as you can, knowing that something will come, knowing that you will find something, even if it's a small step backwards, right? Sometimes you just have to do that. But when it comes to the employers, if they ask, the world's changed a lot from the you have to have one job and have that job for the rest of your life. Uh, it's an old school mentality of job hopping and all that. Employers really, a lot that I see now, they're really open when they see that people are moving maybe 2 years at this job, 3 years at this job. They're not as picky, especially if you have a good answer for the reason behind those. Now, if you get kind of some old school recruiters, you get some older individuals, they're going to be a little bit more, it's a demographic thing or a generational thing, not demographic, generational. Where they may think, oh well, you're a job hopper. You had 3 jobs in the last 7 years. You're a job hopper. That's not true. That is not true. I've advanced in my career because I have moved jobs. I've advanced. If I would have stuck with the same job I had with SOS staffing back 17 years ago, and I loved SOS, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking bad about them all. I'd still probably be just a general salesperson, not moving up to different roles and responsibilities. You have to move jobs sometimes to get to a better role, to get to a better opportunity. And anytime that I ever went on an interview and they asked me that question is, oh, well, you've been a job hopper or you haven't worked for a little while. Tell me a little bit the reason why. I'm very open with them. I just explain to them the reason why. I don't ever talk bad about my last employers or anything else. I just give them the info, give them the data, and just show my excitement to be there and tell them this is the job I've been looking for. Does that answer your question? I think I went off on a little tangent.
No, it does. It's kind of that as you mentioned, it's that generational shift where you're exactly right. People are, if you looked on LinkedIn, people are moving in the 2 to 5 year realm. And for me personally, early in my career, that's exactly how I moved up is I would find a job and the next one that would come along would be a little bit more senior position and more pay, and you just kind of leverage that as you go up the ladder. So
Mhm.
it does feel like maybe a couple of things have pivoted. So I know you're late, but the follow-on question is just back to your vision of the job market. And I don't know if you have like a 2 sentence answer to that as to what you see and when you see this year, but I think everybody noticed last year that things really did kind of lock down, and just your thoughts in a real quick second of how you see that playing out this year.
Absolutely. I saw it in January of last year when I went from having 75 employers in October of 2023 to having 35 employers in January of 2024 come to my events. I saw the shift and I saw it very, very fast. People were holding to see what the government was going to do. Companies were holding strong to see what was going on, right? Inflation jumped up, prices went up, everything went up. And so companies, of course, kind of held strong and said, well, we're going to wait and we're going to see what's going to happen. And I knew that was going to be like that all last year. All last year was going to be like that. And I anticipate probably when it starts getting warm again, I'm thinking March, April, we'll start to see a big shift when people, again, now they know kind of what the government's doing. We got a little bit of a plan. And this is not a political thing or anything else, but we're just watching and waiting. And I do see a lot of growth. I do see a lot of opportunity coming. I really, really do. I'm very excited for this year, for what it's to bring, what's going to happen. I wish I could say that it was going to be a flip of a switch and, January hit and all of a sudden all these companies just started hiring. Boy, it's a big wheel and they got to get that wheel turning again. And once they get it going, though, you are going to start to see a lot more organizations hiring. You're going to see a lot more companies starting to create more jobs and more opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Shane, thank you for coming today. Today we had Shane, founder and CEO of Compass Career Fairs, sharing insights, not only of a career fair, but just attitude and life. And so, Shane, thank you for coming today. I hope to see you myself tomorrow if I can make it away from the office. And hope some of you get a chance. If you see Shane, I'm pretty sure you're going to be seeing him working the event, serving the people. So, Shane, thank you for coming today.
Thank you. I'll be going fast. And like I said earlier, look at that podcast called How I Built This. It motivates me. It's really cool to hear these founders and hear these organizations. And again, it's free. Look it up. It gets me jazzed up. I'll get in my car and I'll start driving and I'll listen to an episode. And by the time I get to wherever I'm going, my brain is spinning. Oh, I can do that. Oh, I'm going to try this. It gave me ideas. It's a really good podcast. So, okay. Well, thank you all. And I hope to see you tomorrow. And if you do see me, stop me. I'll be running fast. So yeah, I won't have a lot of time, but connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'd love to continue to help any way that I can. And I appreciate you letting me be here, Steve.
Thank you, Shane. We're going to end this recording. Thanks.